morning and welcome to another capacity development video para sa atong OCS na batch. Since we are on advocacy planning for this video, so let us be reminded that whenever we do advocacy work, we always seek to ensure that all people in society are able to have their voice heard on issues that are important to them. So it also tends to protect and promote their rights and have their views and wishes genuinely considered when decisions are being made about their lives. So we often see this, no? Just a simple example on advocacy is on our city council. So part of some discussions, if there are any, um, it's on an advocacy format. So it's either they go for or against a certain decision or a certain question brought or lobbied in the plenary. And one of the examples also, for example, in the community level, so community advocacy helps people feel more enabled to take control of their own lives and, of course, provide practical support to overcome health and social care issues. So this is I think one of our targets in making our advocacy. So I have here some tips or steps on how to create a simple plan for your advocacy implementation. Since we're on the health or social care issue, I think this is enough of simple tips to create your simple advocacy plan. So let me start. So the first step, of course, is to identify an advocacy challenge or opportunity. So please be reminded that there are certain angles that are possible to take up an advocacy with. So um, let's say on health issues, or there are certain angles, or let's say health is a broad word. So just choose a specific angle that you feel or thought of having a great importance to other people. So, for example, PWD health, pregnancy, etc. Okay, next is of course determine the key audiences. So, for example, no, you've taken an angle of PWD health. So we often target not only the PWD but of course their parents and their guardians. So it's very important that to know who are these key audiences are, what are their ethnicity, what are their language, dialect. That's some factors that also you need to be considering, and of course their socioeconomic status, who will benefit of course in your advocacy implementation. So you tend to know about the demographics and the background of your audiences also. Okay, next. So tend to find out what those audiences currently know or perceive. So this entails a little background check. No, aside from knowing the demographics, we also want to know about their current knowledge or current perception on a certain advocacy or certain point of entry. I should say point of entry where your advocacy would be trying to help or trying to promote. So a simple survey will do, or a simple focus group discussion with your audience, or tending to ask other experts' opinion on certain audiences that you are targeting. So it's very important that the current knowledge and perception of these audiences are, of course, we want to take into consideration. So fourth is determine how each audience receives its information. So we have, of course, knowledgeable about the broad spectrum of our audience, no? So I think this factor is affected by, of course, their social economic bearing. So of course, your audience have different access to technology, even access to information. So it also is the access of information also is affected by the distance of the information source. So might be those audience of yours have cell phone or have been communicating or receiving information by way of tabloids, newspaper, magazines. So it depends on what available technology that these informations are being channeled. Okay, the fifth is, of course, establish measurable objectives for each audience. So, no, we've been sitting with the risk communication of the city. This is the most crucial part in forming our advocacy messaging. So, we tend to, of course, have some targets for each audience because, for let's say no for example under the risk communication strategy of the city government, there are certain people who are not really buying into booster or booster vaccination. So there are certain let's say for example modes or even modes of delivering the information. We've been planning into, for example, going into malls, having our advocacy materials such as audio being played during mall hours, and part of the strategy also for those not buying into booster or ganang vaccination is, of course, we're delivering messages such as you are not allowed to enter, blah blah blah, if you are not vaccinated. So, we tend to really tailor fit each objective for each audience. So it should be also measurable and, of course, attainable. So we have our the basic SMART goals, but in terms of audience targeting. So it's very important to know, of course, the background and the significance of each objectives. If ever, it should be taken into consideration of their socioeconomic status. We're also uh, be considering sensitivity. So there are very various factors, no, that are in play in terms of planning our objectives. So we tend for not only measurable objectives we're trying to build here, but of course sensitive objectives as well. Next is one of the most crucial part is defining the message for each audience. So our advocacy, of course, tends to affect something. So we are targeting that for example, our advocacy on health is trying to affect change or positive change or beneficial change to our audience. So crucial is the message. So even the slightest words or commas can affect your messaging. So di na tayo lalayo, no, for example dito sa ating election. So the the lengthy the message or the let's say abroad the message, it affects differently each audience. So it's very important to know, no, yung previous na mga tips, no, on audience, determining your audience. uh, it's a fundamental step in defining the message. So there are certain techniques that some communicators or communication practitioners are using. So I think this will also be included in our next capacity development on how to make messaging work well or beneficial in your advocacy campaign. Okay, so next is determine the communication activities to deliver those messages. So there are, no, for example, yung sinabi ko kanina, yung sa mga mall activities. So we go to where the people are or where our target audience are. So for example, in our risk communication strategies of the city government, some people or convergence points of people are in the malls. So we tend to go where those mall goers are, of course, to the malls, and uh, in delivering our messages, of course, we tend to coordinate with the mall operators if they could do this as their corporate social responsibility to uh, to play our advocacy videos or advocacy audio or audiovisual materials. So um, there it's not only the malls that are convergence points, so it depends on the targets really. So go to where your audience are to make effective delivery of the message. Okay, decide what resources are necessary to complete each activity. So it depends on the production, no? If your advocacy implementation or advocacy initiative is more on video, so there are certain resources that are needed. For example, the camera, the editing, the layouting. So it varies on which advocacy material that you are producing also. So it's basic also that you have um, administrative activities as well. So there are certain resources that are more on financial, more on people-centered resources. So it varies. It varies really. So also part of your needed resource is also time. So time is a value is the most valuable resource in your implementation as well. So it's not only the money, it's not only the people, but how to work or when to work those people and finances. It it entails time management as well and time necessity. Okay, next. So it's very important also to establish a timeline and a responsible party for each activity. So, for example, we've compartmentalize each activity into phases. For example, phase one, the production. So when will be the production stage? When will be the time or um, the evaluation of our superiors before releasing an advocacy video or whatsoever. So it entails, no, really putting it into your calendars for your team to be guided, and as well as those supervisors or let's say if you're on the LGU side, no, our city mayor before, si Mayor Oscar Moreno is really keen on timelines. So it's very important that you put it into dates, time, and of course, who are the responsible parties that will be delivering such activities or implementing such activities on the approved or expected time. So we have simple templates on these timelines. No, we will provide it for you. Okay, next. Okay, the last, no, is of course evaluate whether you have reached your objectives. So regardless of the time spent, money spent, we should look into if we're achieving our goals. So regardless of the resources spent, Bottom line is, are we doing what we are really intended to do in our advocacy plan? Have we implemented our plan well? Have we managed our resources well, etc.? So, as part of the evaluation process, it's not only your team that you will be evaluating. There should be other eyes, of course, other minds that uh, will be looking into your outputs or accomplishments. So, I think those are the 10 simple tips, no, or steps in making your advocacy plan. So, as for the templates, we will be providing it for you. So, for questions, no, you may reach us, reach our organization, or reach um, si Ma'am Carmel to be guided further. So thank you for listening, and have a good day.